I think we need to talk about manifesting money. Like, actually talk about manifesting money. I wasn't about to film this video today. Actually, you can see behind me, my whiteboard is there. I'm getting ready to film a video about sales and some of the energetic things that I do to bring in sales and how I feel about things when sales might be slow. Because if you are a solopreneur and you have a whole bunch of other life things going on, you are going to experience ebbs and flows in your business, especially if you are over 40 and you don't have all the time in the world to hustle. This is for you. But before I filmed that video, I decided to clean up my office and sweep the floors and vacuum the carpet and all the things. And I was dusting and my eye fell to, I'm going to show it to you, to these. Okay, well, I'm not really showing it to you because privacy and all those things. But for the last 4 years, I think it's 4 years, I have had 3 checks quite literally pin-tacked to the wall of my office, way up above where anybody can see it except for me when I enter the room every day and when I sit down at my desk. And it's always there in the corner of my eye, and they've been there for 4 years. So today, when I was dusting, I looked at them and I thought, I can't talk about sales with you until I talk about these checks with you. And I can't talk about manifesting money and abundance until I talk about these checks with you, because I wrote these checks to myself over a period of time. And yes, all of it has come true, but no, it did not come true in the way that I could have ever imagined. And that's not a good thing, and it's not a bad thing. It just is a thing. So I'm still going to do the sales video if it's ready for you. We're going to talk about how I energetically pull in sales, how I operationally think about sales, and a few really cool like woo-woo things that I do for sales. And so if that's ready, it's going to be in the description box below, or I'll link it here. So if it's not there yet, it's not done yet. If it's there for you. But watch this one first, because I think this is going to help you see how sales and money and abundance and energetics and all of those things, like, they play together. And whatever you believe in, whether it's God or the universe or karma or whatever it may be, it's waiting for you to give it a signal. And the signal is two things. It's sending the signal and receiving the signal, right? You need both. And you can send the signal on 2 planes of existence. You can think it and you can feel it. But somewhere between your thinking body and your feeling body, and I literally pull myself, my hands down to my gut, because that's where we feel things, right? Is this physical plane. And if you follow yoga or yoga traditions or chakra energy, and for those of you who know, I am a certified yoga teacher as well, and I am currently doing my somatic teacher training. So this is all very present for me, is this heart space, right? Between your thinking and your feeling is your heart. And that is actually where you start to send those signals, right? Your heart is an actual electromagnetic force field. It runs on energy pulses. The other neat thing about the place between your thinking and your feeling is your solar plexus chakra, which is actually where we turn our thoughts and our feelings into physical manifestation. So with all that said, let's talk about, how does this have to do with money? How does this have to do with these checks that I have had thumb-tacked, literally thumb-tacked to my wall? And how does this all have to do with sales if you are at the beginning of your journey, or maybe you're plateauing in your journey, or maybe you are pivoting the way you're showing up in the world because you're realizing that hustle is not for you, you have other priorities, and maybe you're like I am, right? You're like early to mid 40s, late 40s, and you're like, I don't want to work forever. I want something that's going to fulfill my life and my business and my creativity, and also fuel my next step, which for me is my Coast Fire. And I'll link that video below, just explaining kind of, that's like a financial model that I'm going after. And it's also why I'm doing things on YouTube. But for you, it might be like, traveling the world, or, spending more time with your grandkids or your children, or like whatever it may be. Maybe it's like donating more of your time to like a charity or, you know, your community. It doesn't matter. But you're here because you want to feel a certain way about what you're putting in the world and what the world is giving back to you. So let's talk about these checks. Okay, so this first check, I'm just gonna do it this way, but you can see here, it is for $12,279.13, okay? This is the actual check that I wrote to myself from, I guess it would have been like our personal bank account at the time. There's no date on it, so this is actually like a check that I wrote to remind myself of the deposit I made. So it's not even a check that was real, but it's the exact amount that I took from our personal bank account and put into my very first ever business bank account. I remember the day clear as a bell. It felt like I was making this massive commitment to stepping out of being one thing into a world where I could be multiple things. I could make money multiple ways. And to be perfectly honest, that was like the largest cash transfer for anything other than when we like bought our house that I had ever made in my life. And it felt like, oh my goodness, this is my commitment. This is my commitment. So I wrote that check. I made it out to my business and I stuck it on my wall and I kept it as a reminder of this is something that I made. This is something I attracted. This $12,279.13 didn't exist in my life before I decided to put myself out and see what the world had to offer for me. And it was like this moment of extreme power and recognition. And what's really interesting about recognition when you're stepping out and you want to position yourself is that the first thing you need to recognize, the first thing you need to feel validated in is not that the market wants what you have. It's not that your friends think what you're doing is good. It's not that your business coach tells you you have a good idea. The first thing you need is to recognize yourself. You need to validate that you are here creating something. And that's what this first check, that's what that was for me. So if you are at the very beginning, and maybe you don't even have a business account yet, or maybe you have a small business account, write a check, go into that bank account right now and look at the balance and just write a dummy check. If maybe you don't even have checks, lots of people don't have them anymore. So like print one out, make one in Canva and like print one out as a physical manifestation of what you know to be true in your gut about yourself and the value that you bring to the world and that you can create value and what your mind is telling you you want. Do it and then stick it on your wall. So now let's talk about check number 2. The second one I wrote. This is a fake check, but I dated this one. It was dated for September 15th of 2020. Wow, so I wrote this check in 2019, September for 2020, not knowing what was gonna happen in 2020. Also, just, you know, I had a baby in 2020. We had a worldwide shutdown in 2020. So the fact that this one came true for me that year, I can still feel it in my body as a point of power, okay? So I wrote in the little memo section, I wrote manifest reality. I signed it and I wrote pay to the order of me, and 2020, September 15th, and I wrote $250,000, $250,000 is what I wrote. And I don't know if you can see that. There you go. Now you can see it, okay? Okay, so this was the second check and I tacked this over top of the other one. So I now had 2. I had the one that started my business and then I had this manifest reality. I wanted to make $250,000 in my business. I had never before even, I think that 2019 was the first year I had even made more than 6 figures. And it was like just more than 6 figures, like maybe by a couple $1,000s, like 102, 103. And so this idea of doing $250,000 was like mind blowing to me. Who am I to make $250,000 coaching and consulting with people on communications? And who am I to make $250,000 teaching other women how to position themselves and grow their businesses when all I really had was a few years of experience doing that, but 20 years of experience on camera, in newsrooms, writing stories, being a journalist, being in PR, and award-winning at that. So that year, and then on top of it, the world threw at me what happened in the world in 2020 and an unexpected but delightful pregnancy and baby, okay? So I had a lot going on that year. When I look at that, the representation, I actually took some notes on what this check represented to me. It represented to me that I deserved to have dreams that were bigger than what my mind or my gut could rationalize. And when I think back to it, this might have been the first ever time that I unconsciously allowed myself to feel a little bit destabilized by what I was going after. And this is only in hindsight I'm seeing this, right? Like 5 years removed. I now see that that is what led me down the path to where I am now with my yoga teacher training, with my new revived consulting frameworks, with the way that I work with clients now one-to-one, and certainly my production company, is that this goal at the time felt so audacious, it felt a little unsafe. And what it did is it forced me to really get clear on where is my value? How do I help? And when I did that, this goal became a reality within exactly that time frame. Now, I don't know if I hit it exactly by September 15th, but what I can tell you is that that next year, I actually did more than $250,000. And it was more money than I had ever made in 1 year in my entire life. And then something remarkable happened. Remarkable in the sense that we must remark on it. Not remarkable in the sense that it was like outstanding. I started to feel unsafe holding that much money. And I started to feel, this is all in retrospect, not at the time. At the time, I didn't have the tools to even explain what was happening. I started to feel like it was a mistake. I started to feel like, oh my goodness, I can't sustain this. Oh my goodness, something wrong is going on. I've only ever made this much money before, and now I made this much money. How do I have to be? How do I have to be to keep holding this? Now, luckily, we did some really key things in our family. We took a big chunk of that money that year. It was more money than we ever had, and we invested it. So we put it into our RSPs, because I'm in Canada, so it's like 401k if you're in the United States, or your retirement savings. We put a huge chunk of money, and I remember writing that check and being like, oh my gosh, this is the largest investment check I've ever written in my life. In my life. But I allowed it to be a point of power. I allowed it to be this, I did this because of how I got really clear about who I am. It wasn't even about what I wanted. It was like, who am I? I am now the woman who, with her comms consulting firm and with her big audacious goal and commitment to being in alignment with who I am, created this much money. It was wild to me. And then along with that remarkable moment comes the final check, okay? The final check that was tacked on my wall, which is where I then decided I want to double this. And I wrote the final check, which was for $500,000, okay? And it was dated 1 year after I did the $250,000. I'm going to be totally transparent. I did not hit $500,000 that year. I actually hit exactly the same as I hit in 2020. I didn't grow at all. And the year after that, in 2022, I actually shrank in terms of finances. It was only after that period of shrinking that I started to move upward. Again, and here's why. My identity, as I said, I had all those doubts. I made all this money. Who am I to hold that money? My identity got in the way of me manifesting the amount I had written on that check. I wasn't being the person who did $500,000 in sales. And in order to get from the $250,000 to the $500,000, actually quite a lot of things had to happen. And in order for those things to happen, I had to get out of my head. That goal set me off in a narrative of I'm not worthy, I have to be like everybody else, my business has to be this way, otherwise I suck. I listened to all the wrong voices. I stopped connecting my head to what I knew. And what I knew is, first principles, I am an excellent coach and mentor. I am an incredible communications strategist. I am a remarkable content ecosystem designer and strategist, especially for people who are thought leaders and have incredible points of view that they want to share. I am so good at leading by doing, not leading by being in the back end, scheming. And a lot of these business coaches that I worked with through those years where my business shrank were telling me I had to pull myself away from the spotlight. I had to stop being in my business. I had to hire a whole bunch of people. So the other truth is that not only was my business shrinking, but I had been hiring team. And so my profits were also shrinking. So I was making like not even near. And so the mental kind of acrobatics that I went through was, okay, wait, I made more than $250,000 and I kept a lot of that year. And I didn't have this super heavy business. Now I'm trying to double that, and everybody's telling me to double that. I have to add all this extra stuff in, and my profit margin shrank. So even though I did make marginally more, I kept like way less. So my profit margins were down, and it all got in my head. And how am I going to actually do this and sustain myself? Which leads us to today, where yes, for the last 2 years in a row, my business has consistently done more than $500,000. And I did it by up-leveling my identity. In my production company, I got very clear about who we work with and who we don't. Where is my bottom? Where is my margin? And who do I have to be in order to create that? And it led to some very hard decisions. Letting go of some team members, letting go of some clients, changing the way we operate. On the other side, on my consulting side, I'm just ramping that back up again. So I fully expect that that side of the business will start to function in much the same way. But I had the same dialogue. It was, who do I work with? Who do I want to serve? How do I help? What I want you to hear about this is that the distance between that first check that was $12,279 to the next check that was $250,000 to the next check that was $500,000, on every plane of existence, there had to be up-leveling. My operating system had to change. My business operating system had to change. My identity needed to evolve. My business's identity and positioning needed to evolve. My approach to sales needed to energetically change. My business needed to sell things slightly differently. My ability to self-regulate through fear and emotion had to evolve and get stronger. And my business's ability to be resilient, and that's all in the way that your business is operating, your operating system and all your systems had to become more resilient. So we started this video by talking about how there are two planes of existence. Your head, what you know to be true, which you can think of as the business structure, and then what you know to be true, which is your gut, your true essence, your energy. And in order to get from that $12,279 up to the $500,000, I had to up level on both planes of existence. So if you liked this video and if this started to make sense for you, I would love to hear your thoughts. Please drop them in the comment section below. And also know that I'm gonna work on some of these videos that are gonna unpack more of these concepts. So the sales and the operating and the energy and how things have shifted. This is how I'm gonna approach the content from now on, because this is how I wanna talk about it. We have feelings and we have structures, and the two things have to exist if we wanna grow in business and we wanna show up as our truest self. All right, thanks so much for watching. Hit like, comment below, and make sure that you subscribe and hit the notification bell so that you don't miss any videos going forward. By the way, I'm Erin. Thanks so much if you found my channel here today. Feel free to scroll through, send me a message. You can find me on Instagram at its.erintrafford, and I'm also very active over on LinkedIn if you like to hang out there. I'll see you in the next video.